Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As far as roll call goes, please show that we have all council members present today. Next up, we have the review of the minutes, December 6, 2023, and December 11th, 2023, regular meetings. Comments, questions, or concerns from council regarding those minutes?
In regard to, on the December 6th minutes, ordinance 10-2023, it states that the city manager advised section 34 of the city code explains the process for removal of the city attorney. It does not do that. It only addresses the appointment, and it is silent on the removal. I just wanted that to be noted, to be clear.
Okay.
I like the change.
Thank you.
Any other additional questions, comments, or concerns from council? Hearing none, proceeding forward. Do any council members have any statements regarding conflicts of interest on agenda items?
No.
Hearing none, proceeding forward. Public comment pertaining to non-agenda items. Do we have anybody in the public that would like to make comments regarding non-agenda items?
Paul Cluth, 68 Frederick Street. I am both a resident and business owner with two separate property addresses in Taneytown. By the way, best to everyone for the new year. May the city have a prosperous 2024. May I approach the bench, so to speak, to distribute my written comments?
Yeah, if you can hand them to the clerk,
Yeah.
and she can
She'll
disperse
distribute
them
them.
on council.
She'll do it. Thank you.
I thought it'd be easier to be able to follow along for reference purposes. So the first item, and these are going to be brief, the first item is a agenda item. So the last three are non-agenda items that I wanted to speak to. So Mayor and City Council, number two, can the city begin a dedicated, full-court effort to continue revitalizing the downtown area for the benefit of all businesses and residents of Taneytown, and not solely depend on Main Street funding for such efforts? Also, building codes should be enforced for buildings with a rundown appearance. A new overall beautification plan should be emphasized in any new master plan. Number three, Taneytown still needs a local newspaper published on a regular basis and not necessarily funded by Main Street funds. Why not seriously consider partnering with a very willing Emmitsburg News Journal and a financially viable monthly newspaper? I understand there is a possibility that they might do a special Taneytown edition for the city. And then number four, please continue supporting the Taneytown Heritage and Museum Association in the best way the city can provide support in that realm. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any additional public comment from the public regarding non-agenda items? Hearing no additional public comment regarding non-agenda items, we are proceeding down to resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. Introduction, Charter Resolution 2024-01, appointment of city attorney. Jim, do you want to lead off on that?
Sure. Just as we talked about last month, to avoid creating a situation where we have an ordinance that's not coordinated with the charter, we could update the charter to speak to the appointment and service of the city attorney. Specifically, what was talked about regarding the ordinance, to put it in sync, would be that the city manager, let's see, will serve at the, the attorney shall serve at the pleasure of the mayor and council. So that would align it with the pending ordinance that's also on the agenda. That's,
Would it be probably better to wait until we actually have legal counsel before we continue forward with this?
I think it would be advisable to sit on this until an attorney has had a chance to review it, yes.
It just makes more sense.
I agree. But in the meantime, if there are suggestions on the language therein, we can
I have
certainly
one,
modify that.
I have actually two suggestions on the language, just to note. Where you have the attorney's rates, can we change that to be compensation? Because that would then allow, at some point, if the attorney was actually an employee of the city, as opposed to being not that we would ever do that or want to do that, but that this would then not preclude that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And then the other change would be to delete the sentence, the attorney shall be the city's legal agency head. I don't know that we have a legal agency, and then that would then create a conflict with other parts of the charter where the mayor has authority to.
Well, you know,
Unless that's what the first part defines, so even if he's the legal agency head, the first part where it says serves at the pleasure.
Well, it seems to be just extraneous.
in light of
Hey, Jim.
recent correspondence, I think this should be tabled until we're able to settle this whole matter. The issue of the status of the legal counsel is kind of up in the air and undecided. And I think that needs to be decided and finalized before we move forward with anything that revises that. I think we'd be better off to, I would, this is not an agenda item, but we've all received correspondence from from our attorney that brings into question this whole episode once again. I think we need to plan to have an executive session with an in-depth look as to what he's addressed and how we deal with it. So I think any kind of action on this right now is premature.
Along that same lines, if it would be allowed, or if I need to make a motion at this time, I think that in the purview of transparency, I think we should be reading the letters that we received via email from council.
Because there is an overhanging pall of legal issues, I don't think that we can read those aloud at this time.
I
I don't
don't
think
think
that
that there's
that's-
anything mentioned about legal issues in it that would be an issue. I thought we were all about transparency.
Well, we are all about transparency, but as I read what came from the attorney today, there are some legal issues involved that need to be resolved in closed session.
Well, are we going to have a closed session then?
We can schedule one for tomorrow if you'd like.
I think this matter is of grave concern to the city. It has ramifications that could literally bankrupt the city. And I think we need to talk about this in detail and in closed session. The letter itself, I don't mind sharing it, but I think if we do share it, that'll get into further discussion that could jeopardize our position.
Well, and I wasn't really looking for a discussion so much, as just putting the information out there, because it seems like it's very easy to spread misinformation when people aren't given all of the facts.
Well, that's,
If council would like to read the letter, by all means, read the letter, but I will let you know that I do plan to rebut anything in that letter. And I want council's permission to be able to rebut those items.
That's the concerns I have. We read the letter, we have the reply.
I don't think
and we-
that
we-
conversation
we-
would be constructive at this point in time.
We won't accomplish what we need to accomplish.
Not in this
And that
forum.
is-
We have,
And that is rectify the miscarriage of justice, I guess is what I would say.
So I think the answer to your question is yes, we need to have a closed session, because I think that it does need to be discussed. Although we don't have legal counsel to have a closed
You can
So
set up a
we don't
closed session.
need,
Okay.
yeah, we don't need him to be there.
So I move that we have a closed session on Monday.
I could second that. I'm all for that, 100%.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, closed session on Monday. Jim?
Following the.
Can we do
following
it
the-
prior to the meeting?
We could do it Thursday.
No, I
I'm
just
fine.
mean,
You mean
What
earlier
time?
Earlier
on
than the
Monday?
Before or after the open session on Monday? Is the question standing.
We better do it after,
Thank you.
unless we want to start at 3 o'clock.
I just didn't want to stay till midnight.
Sounds good. So, Jim, as far as this introduction goes, do we need something on Monday, or we get a consensus here today to just scrap it until we have an attorney, essentially?
I think Monday, we can take action to defer the charter resolution, and we may want to consider the same thing for the ordinance, since they kind of are a pair. You know, we don't want to enact one without the other,
Correct.
so. But it would be nice to get that in the minutes as to why we're not acting.
Sounds good. We'll talk about it further on Monday. Any further questions, comments, or concerns from council regarding the appointment of city attorney? Charter Resolution 2024-01. Hearing none, proceeding forward to the adoption resolution 2024-01, water allocation for January. Any comments, questions, or concerns from council?
Not on the water resolution.
Hearing none, proceeding forward to the city manager report.
Let's see, pretty brief tonight. We did take delivery of our small dump truck under capital equipment, so the guys in Public Works are very pleased so far with it. There's some nuances they're still learning where it's a little different than the previous dump truck we had, but so far so good. No update on the police vehicles. It's continuing to be a challenge to order Ford police interceptors. So we have had just brief conversation about maybe exploring another make of police vehicle, just because it's been so hard to get
Jim,
the Fords.
one thing I'd like to, just, that kind of struck me when I read it, and I don't know any stock in Ford Motor Company, believe me. But I have read a recent article, I'm kind of a car guy, and read a recent article that was evaluating light trucks and pros and cons, and the author of that truck, and I don't think he wasn't from Ford Motor Company either, but said there are major transmission issues with GM transmissions and Fiat Dodge transmissions. So before we do that, investigate that and see if that's true or not, that's all.
Right. And the department has had good results with the Ford police interceptors over the years, and we have a good rapport with the local Ford dealership for maintenance and repairs. You know, when we've had other other brand products, particularly the Dodge, there's not a Dodge dealer, you know, immediately local. So that presents some logistical issues. When we had looked at the Dodge Durangos a few years ago, when we were making the decision basically to move to the hybrids for the police interceptors, the payback period based on the fuel economy was relatively short, that, you know, that we saved more money in fuel over the life of the vehicle than the additional purchase cost. So it simply made sense to stay with the Fords at that point. But as we've seen, they've been getting harder and harder to acquire. And we don't want to fall into a position where we are,
Yeah, and we were
you know,
waiting
having to buy
a
bunch
long
of
time for
vehicles
these two vehicles.
one year.
I'm not discouraging you in any way, I just say,
Yes.
make sure you do your due diligence, just before you do anything.
Yes.
You know, years ago, I was a proponent of getting the Dodge patrol cars, cruisers, and they've had mixed results, I think.
Right,
but,
we
yeah,
did.
yeah, so.
Yep, so that's, yep, certainly something we'll take under advisement.
May I ask, Chief Baker, could you, given your extensive experience across a large organization, I'm not sure what vehicles, your force had, but can you speak to any of this?
Well, certainly I'm not an expert on vehicles either, but like you said, I have had some experience, and I would say that police chiefs are to some degree no different than the public that sits here. Someone loves a Chevrolet, and someone loves a Ford, and someone loves a Dodge. And they're all viable vehicles. But yes, we have done our due diligence, and we're considering the Dodges just because they're available. The Ford can be the greatest thing in the world, but if we can't get it, it's not going to do us any good. And one of those steps that we've done to take, to compare things is checking with other agencies that are running the Dodges. And anecdotally, but I'm not aware of any issues. But I certainly will take your comments
again,
in
I just brought it
consideration.
up.
Yep. But they're all very
I'm not trying
viable.
to discourage anything. You guys are gonna have to use the equipment, so you decide which one's best for you.
Yes, sir, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, we already touched on the charter update that we're going to push to the side for right now. As far as Roberts Mill Road and Broad Street goes, we have a walkthrough with the contractor scheduled for this week. I'm sure there are going to be a number of punch list items. With the concrete, there's been a couple areas that have cracked, a couple of things that were damaged after they were installed. So that walkthrough is going to identify those and tell the contractor what needs to be repaired before we close out the project. There will need to be some return of the subcontractor that did the fine grading and seeding, grass seeding of the areas that were disturbed, just because we ended up so late in the year. We're really past the growing season. So we expect to have to return because we don't know how well the seed that was spread is going to perform over the winter. So it's not going to be completely wrapped up until springtime, but the construction itself is complete. Aside from, there are going to be some repairs, some punch list items. Let's see, no update on the Riffles Alley storm drain this month. And same thing on the sewer rehabilitation design. We're waiting on CDM for their, them to get rolling on that project and have enough to share with us as far as, a conceptual design. I did want to share some good news regarding the wastewater treatment plant. Now that we have our final flow numbers, we did meet permit for the year. So that's for us, that's a big achievement, something, that we've been working towards with that capital improvement program over the last couple of years to put us in a position where we could get the numbers to work.
I'd like to have it entered into the record. Congratulations to you and to Kevin and his staff and everybody down at the treatment plant for having made this happen for us, because we certainly couldn't move forward with this sword hanging over our heads, and I'm just ecstatic that we were able to make this work.
You and me both. But thank you for that. And I, again, would like to thank council for the support of the capital improvement program, because if we hadn't invested in those projects, we would probably be having another year of not meeting permits. So I really appreciate that you guys, saw the benefit to that and supported that. So we're actually 41 pounds below the limit on phosphorus. So we knew that one was going to be very close after we had that spike in the summertime when the flow was more concentrated, and it took us some time to adjust the processes for that. But again, we introduced some changes to the procedure where now we're doing unofficial tests on the inflow so that we can react more, in real time to what's going into the plant and adjust dosages accordingly. So that step is really going to pay dividends, I think, in the long run. And on phosphorus or on nitrogen, we were nearly 1,000 pounds under, 973 pounds it was would have been our remaining load limit for nitrogen. So, but phosphorus was the one that kind of had us on edge the last few months. So, you know, again, kudos to Public Works and the guys at the treatment plant for making that happen this year. So,
Jim, where do we stand at this point with the fines?
So we have some things that we will need to, now that we have our annual flows and our annual, floating cap determined, we have some additional reporting that we're going to do to the Department of the Environment. I don't have the date right in front of me, but I believe we have until the end of the month to provide that. They want to see some additional documentation regarding our redundancy plan, where we talked about having backup materials available and also a better defined preventative maintenance schedule, things like that. So we do need to share some additional documentation with the department, as well as our year-end figures. And they will then evaluate that and come back with, we assume, a counteroffer to the offer that we made in November to settle.
Thank you.
Let's see, that's really about it. I figured we probably want to save plenty of time to talk about parking. So if there are any questions, feel free. Otherwise, that's all I have.
Questions, comments, concerns from council? Hearing none, proceeding to department reports. Mish, let's start with economic development. Did you want to lead us off on the parking discussion?
I was prepared to speak about that a little bit later on the agenda, but I'm happy to now. It's up to you.
Why don't
You
we-
want to do it? Yeah, we'll wait till
let's wait till-
that's
yeah.
fine.
We have it under new business, so why don't we go ahead through the other items?
Questions, comments, concerns regarding departmental reports? Jim, do you want to go over just an overview?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to go over an overview of the departmental reports?
Um,
Anything that sticks out to you?
Nothing really left other than all the detail that's in economic development related to the parking that we'll get into later. Let's see.
I didn't see anything that jumped out at me.
We were hoping we'd be able to share good news about the completion of Bollinger Park, but the contractor's still fighting weather a little bit, and, we're very close, but still not ready to cut that ribbon.
Questions, comments, concerns from council regarding departmental reports?
No, I'm good.
Hearing none, proceeding forward to new business. Monthly financial report. Questions, comments, or concerns from council? Hearing none, proceeding down to accounts payables. Questions, comments, or concerns from council?
Nope.
Hearing none, proceeding to discussion on downtown parking. Mish?
Good evening. I have in your packet provided you with about 24 pages of information on parking. I'm happy to give a quick run through of that if you would like that. I'm happy to answer questions immediately if you have any of those. I am open to whatever the council needs.
Let's do a quick run through so audience can know
Sure.
what we're talking about. so far.
Parking in the Main Street District has been contentious for many years. My understanding, what I've been told since I got here, is the parking meters were initially installed because businesses were complaining that downtown rental tenants were parking in metered spots, or rather, were parking on the street, preventing customers from parking there. The solution was to put parking meters in, thereby, with the 2-hour time limit, preventing people from overstaying, and discouraging them as well by having to pay for the parking. If you were to look at like the Google Earth view of the downtown, you're actually going to see a lot of parking lots behind East Baltimore Street on what I would call the even numbered side. There are various buildings that have their own parking lots, and there's also parking that happens pointing what I would say towards Frederick, towards the west. So you can really, you can look at it and think that there's a lot of parking here, but there are some really overlooked places. One Frederick Street, where the dance studio is, has about maybe 18 apartments. 4 York Street has about 17 apartments. Neither of those, to the best of my knowledge, provides parking for their residents. So just in those two, you have suddenly a lot of people. We don't, and I'm not saying this to say that you should require apartments to have more parking. That is definitely not a development-friendly thing that I'm saying. In the mid-2010s, the mayor and council adopted a resolution that the city manager brought to our attention, obviously in December, saying that leading up to the winter holidays, there was free parking at certain times. And then in early 2020, a pilot program was developed to allow city staff to issue customer parking permits to businesses for distribution to customers. And we have continued that. And somewhere, I think, in your packet, I've included the memo, and maybe it's not here, but that now Commissioner Vigliotti put together for the council at the time when he was on the council. We have not tracked those parking permits. There is no serial numbering of them. Sometimes if I'm not here, the finance office ladies can print them off and hand them to people. Sometimes I'll shove a bunch at the mayor and say, hey, stop at this place on your way. And I think that is an oversight, and that's something that I have come up with a little bit of a system, hopefully, to rectify moving forward. If giving out parking passes is something that we want to pursue, we'll be able to track how many go to each business, and then to be able to look at, what kind of cost foregone in meter revenue that represents. And obviously this year, you came to a consensus to allow free parking at all times during the holiday shopping season with a 3-hour time limit.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Did we have any reaction, adverse or positive, or anything about that free parking during that Christmas time? Did it cause any problems or cause any excitement, I guess? What was the reaction?
The initial feedback from that first year's pilot was overall positive.
That's
just,
the
just
2020
anecdotal.
pilot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you talking about when we did this Christmas, though?
This year, I think you're talking about this
Yeah, I
year.
thought he was-
Was there
he was
any
talking
feedback
about
this year?
There was a little bit of negative feedback from a shop owner who I don't think really understood what we were trying to accomplish. And I had asked her to be here tonight. I don't see her, so, but generally, it's been, the feedback on the parking passes has been positive. The only thing, there was a suggestion somewhere buried in in all of this paper that I printed off today, about putting some kind of signage or labeling on the meters to tell people that passes would be available at the businesses. Because all too often, people are, I see it all the time, that people feed the meter before they come in our door, and we're like, oh, here, you could have just had a parking pass, because a lot of times they're checking in and they're headed to Antrim, so they don't bother coming around to our, even though we have off-street parking.
That's what I was gonna bring up. I use the parking passes all the time. I don't have a lot of floor traffic. But when I do have floor traffic, the people are there usually a couple hours. And it's, unless I remember to tell them on the phone, come in and get a parking pass before you put a quarter in a meter, they put a quarter in a meter.
That is certainly a concern that we hear, and I don't think that they would mind me identifying them. Stonehouse has a lot of customers that will park here in the lot by City Hall. And then they walk across the street and find out that there's a parking pass, and they say, oh, am I supposed to walk across the street 2 more times? So it's not a perfect system, but it is a system that has had generally positive feedback. Anything else on that right now? So I went through and walked all of the parking spaces on the street and in the lots that we own, and at Trinity Lutheran Church, where we have a parking license easement. Did I get that term right? Parking easement license?
License agreement, yep.
There we go. So altogether, we have 287 parking spaces. There are 44 parking meters. Some of them are dual meters, so you can use it for the space in front of it and behind it. And amongst those 287, 18 of them are blue or handicap accessible.
Is that on-street parking, or is that
All.
includes the municipal lot behind the city hall here?
Yes. So there are 60 on-street parking spaces right now, and that is with a front line and a back line and the sideline painted. So actual identifiable parking spaces that Public Works marks for us. There are 227 off-street parking spaces. 51 of those are in the police department back lot. 79 are in what I call the Riffles Lane lot, or some people call it behind the fire department. And 74 are in the Trinity Lutheran Church, which we have access to Monday through Saturday. I am told also that before streetscape, there used to be meters and lined parking spots that extended further down on York Street, for example, but that following streetscape, the decision was made not to line and meter those.
That's not exactly true.
Oh.
The parking meters were erected in the business district. And where the business district stopped, that's where the parking meter stopped. So for instance, there used to be a parking meter in front of my house and my neighbor's house. And that's residential, that's R6000 district. So years ago, I'm talking 25 years ago, the council said, well, we don't need meters in non-commercial areas. There was parking meters on York Street in front of the Sands house, but that used to be a ceramic shop at one time, so it did have retail space, and it still is zoned commercial up to the alley, I think. So that's the reason that the meters were taken down there. But it predated streetscape a long time.
I think that,
The idea is that we could create more parking if we wanted.
Yes.
We have the option to continue lining out. There is no street narrowing or anything else that prevents us from, and indeed, longtime residents will remember that parking used to exist.
yeah, I think you were referring to park spaces that were closer to the corner at the main intersection, where before the state changed the configuration,
We did-
if I'm not mistaken.
We did lose a couple spaces
Right,
during
We did
streetscape.
lose spaces when
Close to the corners.
At streetscape, we lost a couple in front of the Mark's Place and the Chinese restaurant. And over there, we lost a couple of places.
I think we do still meter the city manager's house, though, so rest assured. Park Mobile. So one of the things that, I said to somebody earlier, I think that what everybody can agree on about parking is that it's broken. One of the things that we hear often is that the parking meters don't work. Another thing is that people don't carry change anymore in 2023. Park Mobile is a smartphone-based app that's been adopted in Ocean City, Bethany Beach, Fenwick, Dewey, Rehoboth, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh. And around maybe September last year, they came and pitched to me their services here. I've included a lot of the nitty-gritty information for you. They can still pay by coin. Using the Park Mobile app, they can pay by American Express, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, all of those things. And I've included some graphics for you, too. There is a downside to Park Mobile, and that is that anything that involves credit cards costs money. Adopting Park Mobile would have the potential to cut into a lot of the parking revenue that we receive, but it's also a way to make metered parking more friendly, if meters is something that you decide to go with. If you say, we want meters, a little bit later, we sent out a survey to the 28 businesses in the Main Street District, and only one of the replies said that a customer had complained about the cost of parking. Nearly all of the replies said that customers had complained about the difficulty of parking. I don't expect that people are too upset about paying 25 cents for a half hour to park. I think they're frustrated about not being able to pay that when they try to.
It's 15 minutes in Hanover.
Are you suggesting that we put the
Oh, no,
squeeze
no,
on?
No.
Oh.
I'm just observing what our sister city to the north does.
And it's much more expensive in Gettysburg, but that's Gettysburg. I know that Park Mobile, I believe, is also used around State Circle in Annapolis. Because I've used it there, so I know it's there. And it seems to me that this is a good system that could be highly effective in places where you can charge more than 50 cents an hour for parking. You know, the issue with that here is we don't charge enough for parking to make this really worthwhile to us.
Sounds like a second vote to increase the parking. My gosh. Hanover gets more, we're not charging enough to make it worthwhile. That is not what I expected to find here tonight,
That's a vote
folks.
to look for another option.
There's a lot of automated parking systems available. And I think, have you looked at others besides this one right
These are
here?
the folks that came and knocked on my door. I haven't gone knocking on theirs. I'm happy to if there are obviously, other
Well,
services.
you know, when I go to Frederick, for example, and pull up to a parking meter, and it tells me I have to download the app and enter all this
Yep.
crap.
I agree. Yeah.
You have.
I take my chances on getting a parking ticket.
I mean, I
And
almost
I
feel like it's a
assume that they-
deterrent to do
So-
all that to go into a store or to go into the like that's, I don't know.
You
To me,
spend as
that's,
long downloading the
Yeah.
app and putting your information in as you might spend in the store.
yeah.
It's handy when you're, like I said, if you're in Annapolis for 2 hours for a meeting, it's one thing, but
Or if you're one of our residents who's gone to Ocean City and downloaded it to pay for parking there, as I know many of our residents do go to the Eastern Shore for break. The reason that Park Mobile is attractive from my perspective is simply because they do have, I think, something like 47% of the national pay by phone or pay by app business. But
That's
they're the
impressive.
people.
Well, I think the main thing is that it still has to be monitored by the police department.
Yep.
And that's where our problem
And they're
today
here.
is that
Sure.
people don't feel like the meters are being monitored, or, you know, that the street's only being used for the businesses. We still have individuals that park there all day. We have the safety parking enforcement thing. We have it already, do we not?
We do?
I don't know why we're not utilizing that. And it's right here, we have adequate parking. We have adequate free parking. You pay to get closer.
Ma'am, if you give me the up safety thing, I don't think anybody wants to see that.
Right, but I'm just saying,
So
like, you
that
know,
is not, yeah.
when I go downtown, I will oftentimes park in the lot. If it's open, I have parked in the back. You know, we have a lot of free parking. It's just, you know, people walk across a parking lot
We
to
have
get
to
into
let people
Walmart. I
know
don't
where it
understand.
is.
Right, maybe we could advertise more
You
where
know,
the free
people
parking
probably
is.
don't know about the Lutheran Church.
But we also probably need to
think
just
we
make it
don't know
more
about the big lot out back.
walk-friendly and install behind City Hall. I think we need to install cameras.
I guess you're right.
well, because I actually did a study on this, because, you know, parking has long been an issue that I have, you know, one of the things that I have been wanting to do for 5 years is stamp out this parking myth. But if you were to Google Earth it from where you might park at Walmart to the electronics department is a longer distance from the center of this lot back here to downtown.
Absolutely.
So you walk farther going into the Walmart than you do from this lot to downtown. So I think this is an educational thing as much as anything else. There are people who don't even know that lot's back there.
All right.
So I did, because I have heard competing things about tire chalking, do some research specifically on that. Tire chalking, for anybody who doesn't know, is how you measure whether a car has overstayed its allowed time. And in the old days, you know, the police would chalk at, I don't know exactly, right? Say, put a chalk mark at 1 o'clock. And then if they came back 2 hours later and the chalk mark for that car was still at 1 o'clock, that was your proof. In Michigan, somebody sued the city of Saginaw, and a federal appeals court there said that chalking a tire is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. In California, somebody sued the city of San Diego, and the appeals court there said, that's not a Fourth Amendment violation. My opinion has always been that litigation is expensive, and we should try to avoid that if possible. The up safety does have, the up safety does have what would be called a digital chalking
Yeah.
method. And I have not, like I said a minute ago, they don't let me play with the device. So I've never used it myself. I don't know how user-friendly it is. When you say, Councilwoman, about the perception that we aren't enforcing parking or that we actually aren't enforcing parking, I think that it's a big drain on manpower, or person power, I should say, I guess. And to ask an officer to come every 2 hours, perhaps from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., could really detract from, community policing and presence in other parts of the city. That is certainly, though, a decision for you to make and not for me, because I look only at the economics of it all and not necessarily
No,
the,
but we should be utilizing whoever we use as being that presence in our downtown. Why wouldn't we want an officer, present in that area as much as possible, especially in some of those parking lots that,
Right.
Well,
need
certainly,
a little extra eyes.
meter enforcement wouldn't necessarily put them in the lots. I just want to, you know what I mean?
And I understand that, I'm just
Unless you wanted to
saying
meter
that
the lots. I'm gonna talk you people into higher rates and more lots.
all over the city, not just on the outskirts in the car waiting for speeding.
I mean, it is hard to have all over the city with the amount of officers that we do have at the city.
Right, if we were
Please be
fully
aware,
staffed,
we
I
have,
would,
even if we're fully staffed, we have a lot of neighborhoods in our city for policing to occur. Just to focus a sole officer downtown, that's what half of our active.
I would imagine the weekends would probably be the main shopping times, especially for a lot of those places that aren't even open on the weekdays.
We did send out to 28 businesses, just a brief 8-question survey. In your packet, you have a list of all the businesses, so if you feel as though I had neglected anybody, please let me know. I confess I did not include Antrim. I didn't think that their parking concerns and the rest of ours were the same. We got a 57% response rate, which during the holiday season when people were trying to sell stuff, I was really pleased by. And the goal here, I'm afraid, was misunderstood by some people who opted not to complete it. They, I think, thought that I was looking for everybody to send their suggestion. I was not. I was looking for data to provide to you. And they are some of them, I hope, sitting behind me and will offer you their opinions about what the best course of action is. But when we asked them if they would prefer a stricter enforcement or more lax enforcement, yours, because the city clerk is very diligent, is probably all on one page. Mine is in the PDF format that I initially sent it to you in. 9 to 7, strict to free parking. And we also, asked things about what are the hours of the week that you're open. Are you an activity? Are you a restaurant? Are you a service provider? To look a little bit closer at who is feeling which ways. And I think I broke that down for you in words. Yeah, eating and drinking establishments were more likely to prefer strict enforcement by a margin of 2 to 1, and shopping establishments were more likely to prefer strict enforcement by a margin of 5 to 1. So if restaurants and if stores are what you most desire downtown, one could logically draw the conclusion that you should, move in the direction that those establishments favor. Service providers were more likely to prefer unlimited free parking by a margin of 3 to 1. And that's, again, not to say that these people specifically replied, but businesses such as the dog groomer, the hair barn. Interestingly, the gunsmithing folks replied that they were service providers as opposed to retail because they do a lot of gunsmithing and building guns there, but whatever. There were quite a few people who do not hand out the free parking passes provided by the city, and whether that is a matter of their disinclination to add one more thing, you know what I mean? Having to, to reach out to the city when you're out of them, having to give them to your customers, having to explain to your new employees how they work. Maybe they say, forget it, or maybe it's a lack of outreach and education on our part. I can't say. Nobody replied and said, what parking passes? They just said they didn't use them. So that is the summary. I think that I tried to be brief, but I'm not sure if I achieved that. The summary of the state of things as they are. I don't envy you because you have to think about all of those residents who live live along the streets and don't necessarily have parking, and balance that with the concerns of the businesses.
H, that was a lot of work.
Yeah.
We did put in a lot of time going through that report.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest.
And I think 57% response to that survey was pretty good too. I mean, that, don't normally get that kind of response to that kind of mailed survey, but it's again, like everything we deal with, it's a complex issue.
Absolutely.
And, it gets down to one of these, to the old saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? And whatever we do, we've got to balance it with economics and consider manpower and, or person power, I guess. And ramifications in many different ways. So I think it's something we certainly should talk about during budget time and decide whether we need to do anything or nothing. I mean, is the idea of putting a little foil sticker on the meter saying, come get your coupon, have merit? That's certainly a cheap fix. And it may help 20% of the people that park on the street, but is that enough? I don't know. Well, that's just,
I
to think
also,
about.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I also forget sometimes that you don't all live inside my head and hear the things I hear. I do want to make sure that you are aware that at least one business specifically has a problem that is derived from the type of vehicle that gets parked outside. One of the close by tenants works for some sort of a tradesman company, a plumber or a carpenter, something like that. And so they have their big boxy van that parks out front. And that, so it's not, I don't want to mislead you into thinking that it's just little, Fiats parked up and down the street. That there are also circumstances that play into this.
Okay.
I'd like to add just a couple things. As Mish mentioned, the Park Mobile, that's just one potential provider. And I know there was some expression of frustration with having to download the app and all that, but the meters would still take coins for those who wanted to do it the old-fashioned way. Our vendor that provides the current meters, POM, have meters that will accept credit cards that look like they will fit our existing meter poles if we wanted to go that route, so that it would address the, I don't carry cash anymore concern. And there are other, I'll say, higher tech options to regulate parking, which, might take some upfront investment. But really, I think any of it comes down to the level of enforcement to drive compliance up and drive that parking space turnover that was the whole purpose of having the meters to begin with.
Right.
So, we need to, as was said, if we opt for something like getting rid of meters but limiting the time frame for parking, now we have to have somebody coming out multiple times to see if a vehicle has, remained in a parking spot, rather than just, oh, that meter's expired, we can issue a citation. So, there are some enforcement ramifications, either way we go.
Maybe we could use drones or something.
So there are some rather high-tech, approaches out there, but even those, even if it's, somewhat automated and a notification goes to the police department saying this vehicle's remained in spot number X, for over 2 hours, they still need to be able to send somebody out to issue the citation or it's moot. So it really, a lot of it does hinge on enforcement. And, that's something that, I know that our daytime calls for service have, increased exponentially in recent years. So it's not like there aren't calls for service during the what we would consider the typical workday. We're getting more calls for service during daylight hours than we used to. So, I suppose there's a concern if an officer is walking the meters, they're not right next to their patrol vehicle to hop in the car and go. So there's always that risk, I suppose, also. So a lot to factor in.
You've been around long enough to remember when our crossing guard was also a meter maid. So that's another possibility.
Yes, yes, and I think that offer was made with the current crossing guard, but there was an interest to expand the duties there. But yes, I remember that was a dual position at one point. Yep.
Does somebody have to be a deputized officer in some manner to issue parking citations?
No, it's, I believe, a municipal infraction. So, that could be a civilian employee to do that.
So it could, if we, because I know we have talked about an additional crossing guard, and so that could, the potential that a secondary person could, then be used in that manner.
And that might,
You could add, you just have to increase the level of pay that you're
right,
providing
and
for a
that,
person.
that could maybe generate more interest than we've seen for just the
Just the crossing guard aspect.
position. If somebody's, gonna be able to get a couple more extra hours, a couple extra hours a day
Right.
to do meter enforcement, that,
During the,
is
during
certainly
the
an
middle of the
option,
day
yes.
between when the kids go to school and when the kids go home, they could be doing meter enforcement.
Sure.
There's a lot to talk about in this subject.
And I'm here to talk. Anybody?
Very well done. I think my other concern with Park Mobile, just reading your notes here, this says in fiscal year '23, the revenue was forecasted to be $7,000 from the meters, okay? So then it looks like we would lose 5,600 of that to
So I
credit.
wanted to give you the worst case scenario, which was
Okay.
if every single transaction was only
Right.
for 1 quarter.
Right.
So, I mean, I doubt
seems
that
like
they
it-
are, but I don't want to lead you down the path by making rosy predictions. If every single person just does one transaction for the minimum time,
Well, the object is not to make money necessarily, it's to
right?
protect our businesses. But we don't want to lose money either.
Right, but then I guess my question is, if the object is to make money, and this is so expensive, wouldn't it be better to have a human doing it? You would be paying her less than, we'd have to install the new meters, we'd have to have all these credit card fees, it just seems like a lot.
So Park Mobile doesn't require the new meters. POM, is it POM, POM? POM,
Okay.
our current meter supply company, has alternate meters that they
Okay.
could install with a credit card slot on them.
Is there any
Okay,
cost to us upfront on that, or is that?
Sure there would be. We just know they're available. I don't have numbers or anything yet.
Park Mobile is essentially just a sticker or a placard,
yeah.
just put on our existing meter so you'd still take coin, but if somebody was adamant that they wanted to pay it not coin, they'd download the
There,
app.
and there are other ways, I mean, there are places where where they have a little kiosk
Another
and you,
question. I have a bright idea.
Oh.
Could you charge Park Mobile people more to park than the coin people?
Well, I don't know if Park Mobile would agree to that. I don't
that in
know
Wisconsin.
enough to agree
do?
to that.
Because
But
then I feel like if we could still
During
make
that-
the same revenue.
He did say that during the
we
presentation
have
that
the
we had.
ability to set
Sometimes,
the Park
sometimes.
Mobile price.
Okay,
So we could say Park Mobile is $1 for 15 minutes and blow Hanover out of the water and still keep it a quarter if you're paying a quarter.
okay,
There's
it's good to know.
retailers often have a minimum for credit cards.
They do indeed.
So you do the same thing.
And that is not something that it was not in my notes, Councilwoman, but I will certainly follow up with that.
and like I said, there are places where there are kiosks where you put your credit card in and it gives you a little piece of paper that you put on your dashboard. I don't know how much more or less expensive they may be, but it's,
Use a quarter.
yeah.
I actually like that best, but the problem is somebody's got to
carry money.
change the paper.
Use my quarters.
I'll be honest, I get that little piece of paper that I have to walk back to my car and it feels like getting a parking permit, but that's just me.
Well, you actually, you get something for your money, though.
Oh, that's fair.
Yes, a little stack of slips
A
of
little
paper
piece
that
of
pile up on my
paper.
dashboard.
I guess the other thing that I don't understand is the parking permits for the businesses.
Yeah, what would you like
I-
to understand?
So while I think that it's a great idea, it seems backwards to me. Like maybe, I don't know. I don't know how to make it better, but it seems like it's not an
It's not ideal.
efficient
It's not
use
ideal.
of-
It was, my understanding is, and those of you who were here could correct me, that it was Councilman Bigliotti's thunderstruck idea to help resolve that customers didn't want to pay to park. Does that sound right? And was
does,
supposed to
but-
be a pilot, and then
Yes,
just kept
it was a
going.
pilot program. It seemed to work out.
Yeah.
If we could figure out a magic formula to limit the time and not charge people unless they went over the time,
Oh,
that would be a
gosh.
good solution.
Well, that would be, yeah, because it would be, a $10 whatever fee
Yeah, that
for
would just be called-
overstaying
That
your,
would actually be called a parking ticket.
yes. And that for overstaying and that, if that's something that would fall out of this, up safety, whatever thing, that may well pay for that person to walk around every 2 hours, or,
Right.
and check everybody's, I mean, we're only talking about 72 metered spaces. That's the total number of metered spaces in the downtown. There's 60 on the street, 12 in the lot right here. So, how long can that take to check? But
Logistically, if that's a serious question, it depends on how many tickets you have to issue,
yes, but
or how many times you are entering into your digital talker.
Yeah.
Okay, additional comments, questions, concerns from council?
you want to allow,
Would you like me to stay for the public comment part?
If you don't mind.
Not at all.
you want to go straight to comment on this before we go into anything else?
This is, yeah, public comments.
We don't.
I mean, there are a couple of things that, were raised in the last couple of days through the email chains. And, I think that they, of course, they were, they didn't come up to raise them during the non-agenda items, so if they,
Yeah, I mean, again, that's why we have the non-agenda item part.
but it is a discussion that perhaps, we'll let it go for right now.
Proceeding forward to public comment pertaining to agenda items. Anybody from the public that wants to head on up?
Yeah, so this is the first item that I had on my handout. But first, I wanted to emphasize how nice I thought it was that the city council and mayor did offer a moratorium on the meters for the 2 weeks before Christmas, I think it was. I thought that was a great idea, and I think it was a real nice gesture by the city to offer that. And I think you should continue that in years going forward. I was curious to hear the results of the survey, and it does sound like most of the businesses in town have a preference for enforcement of the meters, and that kind of gets to my point. So I think that enforcement of the meter parking is important so that residents and others don't ignore feeding the meters for hours at a time. Violators prevent business customers from finding convenient parking in front of the open stores. And they also block the curb from the sweeper on the third Monday of the month. Now, in addition, just as a reference, in my case, I am located close to the dance studio that's on the corner. And I do have an issue with residents who will park there, sometimes all day. And so it is important that enforcement occur so it doesn't block customers for when I am open. In my spot, my location, that 1 meter, 2 spots, has been missed by the sweeper for 3 consecutive months because they've been blocked by residents parking there. just a side note, one of the things that I do for my business, and I even have it on my website, I offer my customers to pay their meter for up to an hour's time, just as a good gesture. It's insignificant, it's good PR, and I'm happy to do it. Even though I've had customers come in and say, well, no, I'm happy to put the quarter in the meter. Some of them are concerned about running over, and they'll go out there and I'll give them a quarter if they don't have it in there, and out of the cash register and give it to them. So, and I have no problem with that. Just a side note, maybe that's something that some of the business could also offer besides the parking passes. And I do use a parking pass for contractors when they're in the front to obviously, so that they can do whatever they need to do in the building when that's the case. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So can I ask a clarifying question? Does that mean that we're not monitoring who's parked in a no parking spot when the street's being swept? We're not even monitoring that?
I do see citations on windshields pretty frequently on street
good.
sweeping day.
Okay, good. Because that should be, that should be being
Remember,
monitored.
it's like a $15 citation.
I think we
so-
need to be.
It still shouldn't be it
finding
still
the-
should be able to be
No,
clean.
that's what I'm saying, those,
Like, why have the rule if you're not gonna
I
enforce
wouldn't want to
it?
be paying $15 if I
Ma'am,
could just get up early and move.
I
the
think
car.
that the mayor's point is that some people accept the fine rather than moving.
Well, and that's
Not that
fine,
we're
but
not-
keep
yeah.
giving them the fine. I mean, like,
and we're not gonna stop giving people the fine. It's
Yeah.
just- I just want you to know that some
the-
people
the-
are.
the
even if they get a
issue-
fine, they're not
Right.
gonna change the way
It's
they do it.
twofold. That's,
can we tow their car?
we've got a problem with people parking on the street on the third Monday of the month. But we also got a problem with the street sweeper showing up on the third Monday of the month. We need to do a better job in making sure he gets in here and sweeps the streets. Can't remember when I saw the street sweeper downtown, and my whole life is in a half a city block, so, I'm downtown 24/7. And I'd like to know where the street sweeper is.
They have been here the last several months. There was a string, late summer, early fall, where they did miss for equipment problems, and I think one time they did notify us that they were going to come on a different day. But they have been, the last few months, they have been here on the designated Monday.
Like when I said this when I was mayor, the problem could be solved if the street sweeper would come at 9 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. Because everybody will be gone from work and they'll have a clear shot. I mean, we change this, it might be inconvenient to the street sweeper, but it would be a lot more convenient to our residents. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a safety concern about doing it during more heavily traveled hours. That because when they do have to pull out into the travel lane where there is a parked vehicle, it's easier for them to do that at, 5 a.m. when there's not as much traffic on the road. So I think that's a
That could
factor as
be.
to why
I
it's
mean, there's-
scheduled like
there's-
that.
Nothing is ever simple.
Sure,
so.
no.
Additional public comment pertaining to agenda items? Or-
I'd like to express my appreciation in advance for your hospitality. My name is Richard Collins. I reside in Carroll County at 1725 Splendor Drive, Woodbine, and I'd like to share an observation I made, if I may. I do think it's a benefit. At 7:35, Councilmember Judy Fuller made a motion. The next thing that happened was discussion took place with Councilmember Chris Tillman. After that, discussion took place with Jim McCarron. At no time was there ever a request, do I have a second? What happened was discussion ensued, and a vote was never taken. It's as if the motion never took place. Now it's up to you if you want to do a do-over. Thanks.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Fuller, would you like to make the motion again?
The motion was to read the letter that was sent to us by our legal counsel.
Well, the motion died for lack of a second.
Yeah, I think it died for lack of a second.
That's the bottom
But
line.
point is, if I may, the point is,
I thought
it
we
was
were
never
talking about the
requested.
closed session.
My experience is the chair or the mayor asks, is there a second? That was never asked.
Okay, you're right.
You're correct.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Additional public comment pertaining to agenda items?
Hello, I'm Kenyatta Brooks. I just have a question about the survey and the parking. Are we questioning the citizens who park here in town or only the businesses?
Do you mind, Mr. Mayor, if I answer? I don't want to.
We have in the next Taneytown newspaper, there is a poll survey that goes out to the residents as well that will be asking the question about the parking
So it's gonna come out.
in the Taneytown record. Yep.
Then the second thing I have is, why would I travel a lot, so I use all of these different meter maids and all, and it's very frustrating. It is. You have to download an app. You know, I'm high tech, I can do all that, but it's frustrating because you have to do that, then you have to know the parking spot in different areas. You get the one you say, they print the ticket out, you put it in your car. Either way, I don't know when we all stop carrying change, but people still keep change in their cars. And I like the fact that I can jump out of my car and stick a quarter in the machine, a dime or a nickel. I like that. And I can just get back in my car and beat the meter, like this young man said. He offers change to his customers. Taneytown is moving fast. We're growing fast. But some things need to stay old-fashioned. Just pop a coin in the meter. And it's gonna cost us more money. Who's gonna pay for the credit card fees for the machine? Who's gonna maintenance the machines? You must have, just like you said, get a meter maid. I'm not putting your offer down. I think it's great, but I've been a resident here for 26 years, and I think, I love how we have just pop a quarter in the machine, and I travel a lot, and this is the best system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those comments.
Looking for additional public comment pertaining to agenda items?
Ronald Shelton, AKA Phoenix King, 135 East Baltimore Street. It's great to see everybody getting along tonight. Thank you. Let's hope we can continue this for the new year. As far as the parking thing goes, the app idea is a great idea. I really do. And to build off of what she was saying, I understand some people do have change in their car and they do like to pop a quarter in there. Not saying do away with that option. Add on to that option. But go with what Councilwoman Cheney was saying. If we do go with the app, charge more, like you were saying, Mr. McCarron said that businesses charge extra for credit card fees and things like that. Pass that on. Make it an option that to the consumer, if they want to use the parking app, or if they just want to take a quarter out of their ashtray and put it in the parking meter. If we make it an option to the consumer, we become more convenient to the consumer. That's my take on it. But I thought that was a great suggestion to add it on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment pertaining to agenda items in the back?
Hi, I'm Mark from 7 York Street at the print shop. I just want to, I think most of my points have already been talked about, but I just want to say that I think we need the meters to keep the streets cleared for business parking. I called a couple people. I talked to Pete at No Anchovies, Melody at the Taneytown Barbershop, and the owner, I forgot his name, at Hazy Habits. They all also thought that there would be a giant problem if we do not have meters. So I think most of, Mish and most of my points have already been made about, the meters, and you guys can decide what the best way to do it is. But I think we need the meters. One other thing is, you talk about the lots, back here mainly, and either way you enter that lot, if you're coming from, you want to go to the gym from the street, you walk up there and not the part of that way that you go is not lit. It's not completely lit up there, and there is no sidewalk. Either coming, this way it has a sidewalk in part of it. This way, not that I'm saying it needs to have a sidewalk in there, but it can be a little intimidating if you're in the winter with ice on the road, with no light, with no sidewalk, walking down that alley. So, I mean, there is a big parking lot there. It's not, to me, it's not extremely accessible because of those reasons. So mainly, I think we need meters. And I see as the week goes, as month goes on, as time goes on, the people will start parking and accumulating, and then they come and enforce it, and they get a ticket, and it's cleared out. And then the next month, it starts all over. So, on our street, I don't really see a giant problem with enforcement. Maybe the other people that have problems, maybe they can call and, have it enforced particular to them, as opposed to having somebody run around here doing the 60 meters or 72 meters or whatever it is. But, but I think we need the meters, and they need to be occasionally enforced. So thanks for your listening. Thanks.
I would also let you know that Mark owns both Downtown Fitness and Design Associates, and so he got the survey twice and he only responded once, even though he could have really weighted it. So fair is fair.
He just doubled his response.
Sandbag the survey, Mark.
Mark times 2.
Well, I'm just letting you know he's a man of integrity who didn't want to fudge it.
Looking for additional public comment pertaining to agenda items?
This is Mark Stevenson, 9 York. We also own the $9 Carriage House, which we don't have a parking problem because we have our own parking, and we also have the adjacent Trinity lot. The ice cream and the coffee will be opening this spring, and while we are on the corner, all right, I don't really have a lot to say about the parking because we're actually on the square, okay? So whatever we can get, we're happy with. But what I will say in support of Mish and his efforts is that the discussion around a hybrid meter, if you're going to keep the meters, is where it really ought to go, okay? You guys, the revenue on the meters is a pittance. I mean, $8,000 a year, I mean, come on. I mean, I spend more than that a month to do some of the things that we do. But that parking revenue could be 10 times as much if we ever reach our goal of getting the Main Street where it needs to be, okay? So I would caution you not to think of the short-term problem, think of the long-term gain, okay? I agree with the young lady who likes to put the quarters in, because I like to put the quarters in, all right? My last residence was in Baltimore City, and I am used to the credit card machines and paying way more than I need to just to run in and get what I'm gonna get, all right? But I'm accustomed to it, all right? If it costs me more to use the credit card, to drop 30 minutes instead of the 25 minutes or whatever it is, I don't really care, okay? It's just about the convenience of being able to do whatever it is that I've gotta do while I'm there. The biggest issue that I see, and I am a proponent normally of eliminating any boundary whatsoever to making it easy for somebody to drive by an establishment, stop their car, and go in and spend money, all right? We've done projects in Berlin, we did projects in Easton. Parking came up in both of those. Berlin decided, because Berlin is a little bit different, Berlin doesn't have all of the residents over top of the businesses like we have here. So they didn't have any problem with eliminating parking meters in their main historic business district, because it really served as more of a boundary than it did a convenience, okay? It didn't solve any problem. It was just revenue, okay? The town learned to live without it, because when the Main Street started thriving, the sales tax revenue started to flow, okay? Totally washing out anything that the meters would have ever brought them. Easton, that was a different story. They bring in 6 figures a year on their parking. They were not at all willing to give it up, all right? So what we were able to do in that project was to sort of garner a couple of extra spaces that went meterless in front of our project, just to kind of tie into the very limited amount of parking that we had. I think we had like 6 spots there, all right, because it was in the historic downtown. My point is this: parking revenue can be beneficial, or it can be a hindrance, all right? Right now, it seems to me, and based on what the businesses have said, okay, the parking meters are needed to prevent the abuse, or I should say, I don't want to say the abuse, we'll just say to prevent their businesses from being shaded out or blocked off. Customers can't park in front if they want the option to park on the street, all right? The incident that Mr. Mish was talking about, Jay was talking about the construction truck, that's a real thing, okay? That's a real abuse, all right? When we put the wine market in at 27, all right, the residents there parked in front of that building 24/7. 2 spots, all right? And it wasn't the parking that was the problem, and forgive me, new police chief, this doesn't have anything to do with him. I couldn't get anybody to enforce it, all right? And the van stayed parked there. Now, we got a new sheriff in town, so to speak. I don't see that van there when it's not supposed to be. So things are progressing, but that's a real issue, okay? Without the meters, there really is no way to police that. These guys, they're understaffed. They got a ways to go to get where they need to be. And if the meters help them, I guess, really solve a problem, then we should just stick with what we got, modernize them if we can, whatever makes sense. All right, but we probably shouldn't eliminate them at this point. Okay? I know it's a hassle because the police department still does do the collection and that kind of thing, but you know, if we're going to have a shot out here, all right, if we're going to have a shot on Main Street, we got to give everybody an equal opportunity. And I'll just say this, and this is the only thing I'll say about it: it's not the city's dime that's getting invested in these businesses. It is these people's livelihoods. It's their treasure that's getting put into these buildings to try to make these businesses go. And if we can't do something as simple as enforce parking, we're not doing what we're supposed to do as a city. We're not being a good partner for the very thing that we all really want to see. So with that said, and I'll also make a comment, I'm really proud of you guys. You all are doing a really good job. You're getting along. This is good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I did want to touch, we do have some exciting news coming to the police department. I believe we're going to see some manpower increases here soon. We got people in the works, and I think things are looking up in that direction. So other than that, I know we'll have the department reports next week, so I'm sure that'll be touched on. Yep.
You need to come up to the microphone so that we can be recorded.
The parking has always been an issue.
Your name and address.
Tina. I'm Tina.
Microphone, because nobody can hear you on the.
Right, Tina Stanley. I have the barber shop, 111, across from the Country Kitchen. Been in this town cutting hair for 36 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Now, the parking has always been an issue. It's not, I don't think it's really a problem. I don't think you can call it a problem because there's lots of parking places. But it is an issue. Now, I don't know why we're even changing. Why are we even talking about a change? As far as the meter is concerned, why don't we just stick to what we have? Why is that a problem? There's a lot of elderly people in this town. There's a lot of handicapped people. I have them come into my shop and they can't, I've had two different people try and put a slug, a fake coin in that meter. I mean, how do you expect them to download an app? I mean, I don't know why we're changing what has been working, or has it not been working?
We haven't decided to change anything. We're
Well,
just.
why is it an issue? Why are we even talking about a change?
Well, there was a question about whether we need parking meters or not.
We
And
do
that
need them.
consensus says
We-
we need parking meters.
We do need parking meters because like we said, the people that live in this town or the ones that work in the evening and sleep all day, they park in front of the businesses.
I could I can remember when Streetscape was finished and I was mayor, we had this issue whether we were going to put the parking meters back or not.
Yes.
And at the council meeting where we were going to discuss that, I mean, the entire downtown showed up with tar and feathers and a rail, and I mean, they were going to take us out of town. And we got the message. We need to enforce the parking meters. And you're exactly right. We're doing a disservice to our business if we don't
Yes.
enforce the meters, and we must do that. And I can't agree with that remark anymore.
These people are supporting our small businesses. They're supporting our town. For as long as I've been in town, I have change on my station. And if anybody needs a quarter or 50 cents, I don't care if they're supporting my business or Country Kitchen or Hazy Habits. If they don't have a coin, I'm going to give it to them because they're supporting our town and our small businesses. We are the town.
No. And again, the coupon that we passed out to put on your dashboard.
What coupon?
Couldn't
I
be
never
any-
had a coupon. I never had a pass. Nobody gave me a pass or a coupon for anything. I never got nothing.
We missed you, but we'll have to get you.
Passes tomorrow. The new shiny 2024 ones.
What's that, Jay?
The new 2024 ones.
I'll give you a new one.
Because they had the year on them.
They're dated.
They're
They
dated.
say so last year's was 2023, now it's 2024, that's all.
On the
I haven't-
park, for the
go
Park Mobile one that he was talking about, as far as all it is a sticker that goes onto the parking meters. You still have the change and everything like that. All it does is basically somebody can scan the sticker that is on the parking meter. But it doesn't remove the change aspect or anything like that. It just allows another form of payment other than just the change. But that's if we went Park Mobile, because the Park Mobile one, it has no change to our actual parking meters, just a sticker or a little sign that says, hey, you can also pay with Park Mobile. But the actual change aspect does not disappear with Park Mobile.
Well, that's a good thing then, because,
And that's what we just, when Mish started looking into this, the idea was just how do we make it more convenient for people to pay this? We don't want to take away accessibility from the parking meters. That is not the intent here. We just want to create more ways, more avenues that people can pay and utilize them. So that, yes, that it is being enforced more. Because, then we don't have to hear the argument of, well, I don't carry change. Well, you could have scanned the Park Mobile app to pay.
yeah, but
If
they
we want
can't,
that.
a lot of people don't know how to do any of that.
Yeah. And that's the thing. is
The elderly people have no clue.
And that's fine, that's why
Nothing.
we still have change.
Yeah, but we still have the change.
That's why we still have a place to put change.
I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nothing's changed yet. I mean, it's just your business as usual, so we'll enforce the meters better, though.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Ronald Shelton again, 135 East Baltimore. One thing I wanted to bring up, and Miss Tina, I know you've been in business for years here in Taneytown, and you've never heard of the parking pass program.
Never.
And how long has this program been in effect?
2020.
23 years, or no, 3 years. 3 years. My math was off.
I got a ticket one time, and I went to the police station to pay it, and the chief that was there, that isn't there any longer, told me to get a pass. And I said, where do I get a pass? He says, I don't know.
See, we need to make our businesses, that's a concern. If Miss Tina doesn't know, we need to make sure that all of our businesses are aware that these passes are available for their customers.
And
And that was something that I just, with what she was saying, I wanted to touch on and bring to our attention. Also, to piggyback off what we were saying before, we've already recognized and identified that we need another meter maid. If this opens up, like you were saying, the ability for them to monitor the meters, or we need another crossing guard. If this enables them to monitor the meters, that enables us to increase police presence in the downtown area, in the Main Street area, for one. That's a benefit also. And for two, to piggyback off something that I stated at a previous meeting when we were introduced to the chief, that before he came along, there was a real lax in attitude towards petty things that went on that should have been cited or charged for. And now with him here and hearing these things, hopefully we can address these and make sure that he's fully staffed and be able to handle these situations.
Appreciate it. Any additional public comment pertaining to agenda items? Hearing none, I do want to say next Monday I'll have a State of the Municipality, basically going over what happened in 2023, what we're looking for 2024. One of the things I've talked heavily, my first 6 months here was working with the public safety, working with the police department, getting them back up to force, getting our police chief. 2024 is going to be focused on economic development here in Taneytown. And I look forward to working with economic development director, Mish, here to make sure that we are servicing the business here in Taneytown the best that we can. And I do look forward to doing that. And I know I've talked with a couple of businesses around Taneytown, and we're going to make some strides in 2024. So I do appreciate it. Looking for a motion of adjournment. Looking for a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Carries. Thank you all.
Is your sense that there will be